Could it be that Land Raiders might actually be getting good again? It seems they'll be getting a stat that almost nothing in the game has at the moment, with a mighty toughness of 9. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about a rather exciting Land Raider leak. It seems that unlike the other previous updates that they have had, where they have been adjusting the points, the Land Raiders will be getting a rules bump, one of the strongest toughness stats in the game, and also some massively amped up Lascannons. The datasheet has been cited from the new Chaos Space Marine Codex, which means that it's likely going to be coming to them first, but my guess would be that after the Chaos Codex they might well offer a digital update to the other factions with Land Raiders. It would seem a little bit bizarre for the Chaos Space Marines only to get the Toughness 9 Land Raider and nobody else to, particularly other Heretic Astartes factions like Death Guard and Thousand Sons. Currently in game at the moment, Land Raiders haven't been good for a very long time. They weren't particularly outstanding back in 8th edition, but certainly with the core keyword being a thing, it's meant that they've been kind of redundant for quite a lot of the edition in 9th. Not really good damage dealers, not even enormously tanky for the points cost, and their transport rules just don't seem to make sense compared with just foot slogging your units towards the enemy. Kind of nice that such an iconic unit will be getting a decent buff. So here we have the new Chaos Land Raider datasheet, which was spotted from the new Codex Chaos Marines. Broadly speaking, it is rather similar. From that leaked points section that we saw the other day, the points were unchanged at 265 points base, and over the entire datasheet there are just the two rather important changes, which I strongly suspect are going to be generalised to other codexes in time. Obviously the headline news is the Land Raider getting Toughness 9, which is quite a rare thing within 40k. Pretty well none of the standard Games Workshop things tend to have it. I think a couple of the big Forge World super heavy Lords of War have it, such as the Space Marine Mastodon, the enormous transport, and one of the biggest models in the game in the Warlord Titan. Pretty much everything else has Toughness 8, and it does always just feel a little bit weird when things have inflated toughness despite being smaller units. Obviously in terms of overall durability, it's also the toughness backed up by the saves and the wounds as well. Even though the Land Raider might on paper have a higher toughness value than say the Khorne Lord of Skulls that we looked at earlier, it doesn't actually mean that it's tougher to shift because it's got far fewer wounds. Not entirely sure what they're going for lore-wise with the toughness boost, whether or not it's just to represent that Land Raiders are very well built and kind of an icon from the earliest days of 40k. Maybe they just get extra good at shrugging off medium-sized anti-tank shots that might still do some chip damage to bigger beasties that are of a much larger size than them. In any case, Toughness 9 is really quite a good durability increase, though it will only affect certain weapons. The vast majority of things won't care between Toughness 8 or 9, but the common anti-tank weapons will. It gives you effectively a plus 50% durability increase versus Strength 8 weapons, and a plus 33 increase versus Strength 9. The Strength 8 one is the really big deal, of course. Things like melter guns, dark lances, missile launchers, a whole load of things that are normally good at cracking tanks come at Strength 8, and having them only wound the Land Raider on a 5+ means that they're going to be really unreliable for that role. For example, if you had a bunch of multi-melters firing at 24-inch range, previously it'd take around about 13 melter hits to down a Land Raider. That's a bit better than it used to be due to Armour of Contempt, but now it'd take around about 20 or so of those same hits to kill it. It's pretty significant, and it means that the Land Raider's often going to be able to just shrug off a lot of Strength 8 fire, and not go pop quite as easily while it's trundling up the table. The extra toughness versus Strength 9 as well will be very nice indeed. Effectively, you're going to need an extra third more shots to kill it for things like Lascannons. Previously, you would have taken around about 13 or 14 Lascannon hits to down a standard Land Raider, now to take around about 18. Again, that's really quite significant. There's lots of Strength 9 guns out there, and it means that Lascannons are going to be far less reliable at doing their job. Overall, I think the durability increase is certainly welcome on the Land Raider. Generally, the two main jobs of a transport are to be faster than the standard infantry, and also to be tougher to shield them from fire until they get out and do their thing. Chaos does have quite a lot of threatening infantry, so maybe it might be worth it to actually upgrade to this fancy transport, laugh off most of the enemy firepower, and dispatch them to the heart of the fray and become a bit more of a gun turret after that. It does seem that the transport rules have changed very slightly. It still transports 10 Legion infantry, and it can take Terminators and Possessed, though Possessed do take more space now, taking 2 slots, as they're absolutely massive. Previously, Land Raiders could also take Cult of Destruction and Jump Pack models. Unfortunately, neither of those seem to be able to ride anymore. I guess it is kind of rare for Jump Packs to be able to embark in ground-based transports, and maybe it's to represent the Obliterator's new models being so much bigger than the previous codex. In any case, it's going to be mainly infantry and Terminators. Maybe things like Havocs and Chosen are going to have some of the most interest. or perhaps Khorne Berserkers and Noise Marines as fairly hefty damage dealers that aren't as durable as some of the other slots perhaps. The other change is to the Land Raiders' Lascannons. Again, I sort of feel like it's maybe part of the creep of damage characteristics in 8th and 9th edition, but 4 Lascannons and 2 heavy bolters just isn't really that overwhelming for a vehicle as big and powerful as the Land Raider anymore, so those Lascannons have been charged up a bit. They now hit at d6 plus 2 damage rather than the standard d6. Definitely a very nice boost against things like heavy vehicles. Typically they do around 8 wounds to a toughness 7 vehicle now, up from the average of 5 before. And I suppose they're quite good for killing heavy infantry as well. At least you won't be rolling a 1 against 3 wound infantry, you'll just guarantee that they're dead. So certainly some interesting changes there. I'm sure some people will use it as an excuse to put Land Raiders back on the table. It's definitely going to help it to be more of a threat, seeing as it's going to be able to laugh off a lot of heavy anti-tank fire now. Hopefully at least it should be more durable than the stuff that it's carrying. If you want to kill it at range, you really need some absolutely hefty anti-tank now, or something like +1 to wound with Blood Angels on the charge perhaps. And I feel like it's just going to be that much of an annoying brick in the centre of the army that people will probably have a play with it. I can see why having a Land Raider rolled up could be quite intimidating now. There's going to be a lot of armies that just won't be able to deal with it at range, and you'll basically guarantee that your squad gets a massive alpha strike on the opponent's army. They're still not going to like running into things like Tau railguns or storm surges, but I suppose you could say the same of quite a lot of other armies' armour. For all that though, it does look like the Land Raider is still keeping some of its core problems. It wants to move up to deliver units to the fray, but that means that with all the expensive guns that you've paid for, you do have the chance of them being locked up by chaff and having to target that. At least if it's hitting a lot harder and a lot tougher, then that risk might be a bit more of a price that you might be willing to pay. And arguably a lot of the time it's not really much faster than normal units advancing on foot. The Land Raider only moves 10 inches, and you don't normally want to advance it because then you waste all the big guns. Often if you've got infantry moving 6 inches, then 6 inch plus an advance should give you pretty much the same amount of move. It means that they don't have the durability, but it still means that it's not the biggest win for speed purposes. I guess perhaps the biggest win with speed is actually that you can get out slightly in front of the Land Raider, and that would save you a little bit of distance if you wanted a charge, I guess. I was honestly expecting that when they rewrote the Land Raider, they'd have some sort of nod to its assault ramp, maybe a get out after you've moved similar to the Impulsor maybe. Or possibly even some way to fall back from combat or shoot while you're engaged, as it just doesn't care about small infantry tying it up. I did notice that this one does have the Power of the Machine Spirit keyword, which I guess might be a way that they could add some of those abilities if they wanted to. It'll be interesting to see whether they've changed any of the strats, or whether or not it would just remain as the one to act on full profile. Finally, perhaps the most interesting question is when will the Loyalist, Death Guard or Thousand Sons get the updated datasheet? It is rumoured that there'd be an update to Codex Space Marines later in the year, so I suspect that that would appear then for the Loyalists, but plenty of the other factions have had a book already in 9th edition and aren't going to be getting another one anytime soon, things like the Custodes, Death Guard, Thousand Sons and Grey Knights. For that reason, I suspect at some point Games Workshop might well offer a digital FAQ update, maybe even with this current chapter approved update if we're lucky. It just seems a little bit unlikely that they'd make the other Heretic Astartes, Land Raiders, and Custodes and stuff be so much worse for an extended period of time. It'd be weird to have some Land Raiders massively better than the others. I suppose with Chaos Space Marines though, you could certainly say that about the standard Chaos Marines. They have waited literally almost 2 years for an update of their basic profiles, so who really knows with Games Workshop? In any case, a pretty interesting update there. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Would a Toughness line Land Raider with up guns weapons be enough to put them on the table? Or are they still not going to be good enough compared with just foot slogging tons and tons of Terminators across the battlefield? If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular videos coming. I will post new ones for 40k just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, and you can find that down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.